Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, The Reality of Legacy Environments, or How to Respond When Your IT Environment Holds Back the Business. My name is Steve Leaman, a cloud specialist with TierPoint. I've been in the business over 25 years and have been helping organizations deal with technical debt since around Y2K. When asked what I do, I like to say that I get to talk about the cloud all day long, and that's what we're going to be doing today as we explore our agenda. So by the end of this webinar, my hope is that you'll have a better understanding of how to handle the technical debts associated with your legacy applications and workloads. In order to do so, we're going to need to cover several topics. We'll talk about the challenges with legacy environments and the kinds of problems that are rooted in maintaining those environments. We'll discuss some common mistakes when addressing the technical debt associated with legacy applications and workloads, and the problems that those mistakes can later cause. Then we'll talk about a better and more business-centric approach to modernization that avoids those mistakes, and look at ways that you can use this approach to align with the cloud adoption methodologies for our largest public cloud vendors, AWS and Azure. Finally, we'll talk about how we at TierPoint help organizations with addressing their legacy environments and how you can get started doing the same. Let's dive in. So I said earlier that I've spent more than 25 years helping orgs deal with their technical debt. That's not an exaggeration. And that's because technical debt in IT has been a thorn in the side of the business since the very first software update. Well before I started my career, organizations have been dealing with rising costs, security demands, skill gaps, and the need for speed to allow for innovation. But the current climate has a number of factors hitting all at the same time. And I don't think that it's a surprise that AI is a source of a lot of this pressure. The explosive growth of AI has had an enormous downstream effect on IT, especially those organizations dealing with legacy apps and wrestling with legacy workloads. For one, AI demand means that hardware is more expensive when it's available at all. The largest players are taking the majority of the available silicon capacity, and there's little evidence that that's going to change this year. In addition to that, AI availability of AI is new enough that the sophisticated skills required to build solutions on top of these LLMs are still in very short supply. But the professionals who do have those skills enable their organizations to move more quickly than they ever have before. And of course, that's on top of being highly sought after in competitive environments. So those of you who are old enough to remember the impact that Google search had on IT support, or the impact of JavaScript on the way businesses handle their web presence, or even the widespread adoption of mobile phones as the primary way individual consumers interact with e-commerce. If you remember those, then you remember that those big sea changes had an outsized effect on how fast businesses could move. The early adopters ended up being able to move more quickly and outcompeted the competition. So I think we're seeing something very similar with AI, and that the need for speed is more important than ever. Finally, bad actors have started to adopt AI to uncover zero-day security threats at a staggering pace. This is faster than we've ever seen before. And that means that legacy environments end up being more vulnerable than ever. Now, it's important, I think, to understand that while we're in a perfect storm today, and it's a particularly bad storm, specifically for legacy workloads, it's not completely unique. So when we look at how to address these legacy environments, it's important that we do so with the right mindset. one that's not focused solely on technology, but instead focused on a better understanding of how businesses can suffer when dealing with technical debt, which would then lead to a more complete understanding of the problems that we're trying to address with legacies. So, what exactly are these problems created by the technical debt associated with legacy environments? Well, they're multitude, but they become visible in a few ways that are common across organizations. If you deal with legacy environments, you might see things like slow or complex update procedures. Those procedures are very often tied to manual workflows in operations. Many organizations deal with manual methods to handle things like infrastructure life cycle from deployment to retirement, disaster recovery updates, or even common admin tasks associated with identity management. Those same shops often see fixed capacity as an issue that causes inefficiencies like over provisioning in order to take advantage of the capacity that you actually have and protect those workloads. In environments with really large legacy footprints, you might also be stuck using a reactive approach to security as yesterday's tools lag behind today's needs. So paying down the technical debt, modernizing your environments can really help close the gaps between what you might be seeing today and a future where instead you can promote a more agile approach to meeting business needs or automate manual workflows to become more efficient or scale resources even in real time to meet the demand of business cycles or business growth, and in general, take advantage of a more proactive approach to security, compliance, and support. So I think we can all agree that we need to do something about yesterday's legacy. Well, if we all agree, then how do we start? Well, many organizations assume that moving to the cloud is the beginning and the end of the solution to all of their problems with legacy workloads. They'll pick a method, maybe that's lift and shift of existing servers so that they reduce the amount of change to the way their IT departments manage those workloads. It's a fast path. We're in a hurry. It's a great way forward. Maybe it's a move to re-platform all of the workloads away from servers to containers or database as a service. We can reduce our ongoing costs. We'll use the cloud provider's management to handle some of the load. It's a great path forward. Or maybe their technical debt is so deep that they think they just need to start over, build new applications from scratch using microservices and the most recent technologies. That's the best way forward. Realistically, though, trying to modernize just by picking a single path and moving all of your workloads down that path can actually make the problems you already face with technical debt worse. That's why a one size fits all strategy very often fails. Forcing every application to use the same method can mean more risk, higher costs, and a lack of return on investment for modernization. At TierPoint, we often see organizations who use a rehosting strategy for all of their servers to quickly move into Azure or AWS and never stop to consider they might be migrating not just the workloads, but the legacy technical debt embedded in the workloads as well. Sometimes they'll look back and realize that they've spent time and money not just moving the problem rather than addressing the root cause without meaningfully improving their position at all. Those organizations are the ones who start thinking in terms of buyer's remorse, repatriation. They try to backtrack to the legacy approaches they used in the past. But organizations looking to modernize can avoid this trap, the one size fits all trap, by starting with the right mindset and focusing on the business rather than the technology. So, what does focusing on the business mean? Well, it means that before considering the technical destination, Before considering which broad approach you'll use to modernize, you start by thinking more strategically, and you start thinking about how individual applications and, more importantly, the business functions enabled by those applications would be affected by that modernization. It's something of a truism that IT infrastructure only exists because that's where the applications live. To go a little further down that path, I think applications only exist to make a particular business function more efficient. That group of servers you have to worry about patching houses the ERP system that you've used for 15 years. But the ERP system enables you to coordinate things like manufacturing processes, inventory management, shipping and receiving, all of these functions that are just vital to the business. And it's those business functions that are important, not the technology behind them. That's why it's important to understand the business side of modernization before diving into the technical work. That way you can match different application stacks to different modernization approaches and balance the needs of different departments or job functions with the technical approaches required to give the best combo of results. Maybe that means that the cost savings of a true transformational effort in inventory management is worth the disruption to the day-to-day work of the warehouse. Maybe that means that you've got an e-commerce site with a great visitor to sale conversion rate. Your cart abandonment is really, really low. And instead of the transformation being worth it to the business would rather protect that conversion rate and decides they need to do something that's a lift and shift to reduce the risk associated with redesign. Those are two very different paths that might be taken, but our goal, the overall goal, should be to make the best decisions for your organization about your future state and how best to get there on an application level. So you've given some thought to applications and the kind of approach that you'd like to have for migrating those applications and paying down your technical debt. That begs the question, where should they end up? Which cloud provider is best? That's not an easy answer. And it's not easy because it's not about what cloud is best. It's about which cloud is best for you. As you take a business centric approach, the data you gather can actually help you find a great fit for the future platform that you'll end up in after modernization. Think about it for a moment. Maybe in a well regulated industry, you've got government contracts, you're subject to CMMC, you might have data residency requirements. All of those are going to influence the target for your cloud workloads, or maybe even targets if you've got to have a different kind of more hybrid or multi-cloud approach. Um, Maybe you've got a lot of in-house skill with Microsoft. You're a Windows shop and have been for a very long time. And the way that Azure approaches identity and the way that Azure approaches workloads is a great fit for how your current IT department does support today. It's a great fit for day 2+ support, and therefore maybe you need to start looking at Azure. Or maybe you're in a customer facing business. You recently acquired a team of developers that have a great track record on creating mobile applications in AWS. And you'd like to leverage that know how, leverage those skill sets in AWS. And so it's a good fit for you. Or maybe you've got all of these pressures and you've got a combination of needs that mean you should spread your applications across multiple clouds over the next few years. The point is that you need to build a business case that showcases why the particular platform that you're considering, or maybe combination of platforms, will be the best fit for your organization. So all of this might seem overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Instead of jumping directly into technical decisions about your modernized future state, you can use a cloud adoption approach that focuses on the journey you need to take as you modernize your IT estate. You can begin by assessing the status quo, pairing tools based assessments of your current environment with gathering soft data about how your org uses the applications living in that environment. That enables you to build models for various pathways that align with the priorities of the business and project real results, whether you're talking about process and performance improvements, cost savings, or operational efficiencies. Then, using all of that information, you can pick the right modernization methodologies for your individual application stacks, letting you avoid the one size fits all trap. Finally, once you've picked your methodologies, you've picked your targets, you can start small and scale up, moving into pilot phases or otherwise low risk, high impact applications to provide quick wins. And then with those quick wins, build on the successes that you're seeing across the business. This approach is proven. The largest cloud providers, AWS and Azure, use this approach in their cloud adoption framework. The methodologies here, when I talk about the framework, is that these are methodologies they recommend for any organization wanting to successfully utilize public cloud. Now, we've worked with organizations to take advantages of this particular approach with great results. Let me tell you about one of them. TierPoint recently helped a transportation and logistics company modernize as part of a move to Microsoft Azure. They had been growing very quickly, 45 plus locations, 70,000 trailers, and they kept growing. And their legacy infrastructure was beginning to hold them back. It just couldn't keep up. They had three pressures that were hitting them all at the same time. From a scale perspective, their modern applications, their application approach were exposing some limits in their existing infrastructure. They had tens of thousands of endpoints that they had to keep track of, dozens of locations, and there were some visibility gaps that had become apparent as they were trying to fight some rising threats. From a cost perspective, their ownership had begun to give them some pressure to optimize spend while still modernizing. So, luckily, everybody involved had a good mindset. They didn't start with that one size fits all kind of mentality. They came in expecting to be able to balance growth, security, and financial discipline. And that intersection is what enabled them to see some success. So we helped them when we started with assessment work. We came in and helped them think strategically, helped them select the right platforms and the right methods in order to move their different applications. And today, they're in a better position than they were before. They're in a continuous improvement cycle. They're actively paying down technical debt as it accrues. And they're beginning to look at larger efforts to retool their application stack on their largest footprints, their most critical business flows, in conjunction with improvements to the way that the business operates day in and day out. So they're thinking about this from the business's perspective, not a technical one. So business first and the workflow first. That's set them up for some long-term success. Okay, let's wrap up. If you're considering addressing your legacy environments, we would suggest that you start thinking about a business-centric approach to modernization. Start with understanding the business side of the effort. Get to know your applications, get to know your application stakeholders and their needs. If you've already started with a modernization effort, migration to the cloud, for example, take a moment to make sure that you're not using a one size fits all approach without considering the big picture. Take a look at how well your projected future state aligns with what the business really needs. Make adjustments if you see mismatches. You want to make sure that your approach fits in a way that will give you good return on investment. And so sometimes it's necessary to just take a pause and validate that you're on the right track. If you're feeling overwhelmed, especially if you're dealing with a legacy VMware hypervisor environment, and in advance of some upcoming changes we all know that are coming with VCF 9, both from a hardware and a licensing perspective, don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help. Find a partner like TierPoint. We offer cloud strategy workshops specifically designed to help walk you through the decision tree of how to move forward and start modernizing those legacy environments. Feel free to reach out to us at www.tierpoint.com. Finally, I want to say thank you for spending some time with me today. I know you're all very busy, so it means a lot to me that you were able to attend. And I hope that you had at least some takeaways from today's webinar. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon.